Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and welcome to Introduction to Autism, which is from a digital a course that I got as a late diagnosed autistic person. This video will be about mentalization. I do want to talk about my previous video that was about central coherence. I did more research about it. It seems to have been like a precursor to the monotropism theory of mind, which is probably a little bit closer to the truth. But I think that the usefulness of the video is still quite high, I guess. So this video is going to be about mentalization, which is they define as the ability to reflect over your and other people's behavior, and the behavior as a result of your or the other person's thoughts and feelings. People's thoughts and feelings are not always seen in their body language. Sometimes behavior could be affected by what they have for experiences in life. If you have more mentalization capacity, you can understand easier and understand how other people are thinking and feeling. And it can help you see other people's views on things rather than just seeing your perspective. And so here are some examples of difficulties. A lot of autistic people might think that everybody thinks the same way that you do until you come to a certain age and you realize that no, that's not the case. I think that all children do this, but I think that autistic people have a harder time. It takes longer for them to come to that point of understanding this. You might have a hard time seeing that there's a difference between your own thoughts and other people's thoughts. And you might have a hard time predicting what the consequences of different actions are to be. You might make somebody upset without knowing why. You think, well, I'm not upset by this, so why is that a person upset by this? And that might lead to you might feel that every social situation with interaction can take a lot of energy out of you. So how can we do this? It can be so another thing is that you might have a difficulty knowing how you should do a task, or how you should, because you don't know what the consequences of this will be. It might be difficult for you to make decisions or choices. It can be difficult to logically come towards where and to know what is expected of you. You don't know what is all of the premises are. You might have a hard time knowing how you're expected to do this thing, and that can lead to you being passive or being seen as passive, or that you'll do this the same way that you've done everything before and not implementing the change. Another thing is that you might not know what other people think about you, or you don't know how other people are managing to do these things that you're not managing to do. Other people might need to explain things that they think are obvious, or you might need to explain things that you think are obvious to other people because they don't think it's obvious. And you have to be careful with your words and how you express yourself. And you don't interpret things the same way as somebody else will, so that can lead to misunderstandings. And that can also be something that takes a lot of energy and can lead to conflict. So mentalization is something that neurotypical people might have as well. However, autistic people are more likely to have difficulty with mentalizing, especially when it comes to social situations. So it's important to learn about how much mentalization we each have, to learn about ourselves, to learn to express ourselves, to learn if there's something that we need to change, or if we can continue in this way. To know that you're not always, not take things personally, you're not always the cause of somebody else's behavior. So there's a picture here with a dog, and there are two different people. And one person sees the dog and has like a thought bubble of a cute little puppy. And this is an adult dog that they're both seeing, okay? So one person is like, oh, this is a cute little puppy. And the other person is scared because he's seeing this as like a scary bloodhound, with like teeth showing. So these two people have seen the same thing, but they're interpreting it completely differently. So there can be causes to people's behaviors that we don't know about. So one possibility could be to ask if you have a question, like, what are you thinking right now? That kind of thing. And, sometimes miscommunications might happen, but it's not, it's not always your fault or the other person's fault. It's just something that we need to work on, everybody. We all need to work on this. Then we get to empathy, which is, the capacity to feel and understand what other people are feeling. Autistic people might have a harder time with this, to be more precise with their feelings. It can take a longer time to understand another person's feelings, and you might need an explanation of what's going on in order to get to the empathy, instead of these things coming automatically. So this is a citation from a person with autism. Of course I can feel empathy, but you must first tell me that you're sad, which I kind of agree with. Sometimes I can see that somebody's sad if they are showing it, but a lot of people will hide it, and then they'll expect me to see that they're sad when really they're, their face is neutral or even happy, it looks like. Then we get into other difficulties. So one of them is being too blunt and too clear, which can lead to somebody getting hurt. Another one is that you might react too quickly before you've taken in the whole situation, because it takes you such a long time to understand the situation that you might need to take an action beforehand, and that can lead to misunderstandings. Or you might react too slowly, and your reaction comes long after it was supposed to come, and the moment has already passed, and people around you might have a harder time understanding your reaction. Another thing is that you might take in too many feelings from other people, and you don't know how to handle them at the same time, and it's difficult to know which is yours and which is another person's feelings. And then some people might have a hard time feeling the feelings. Sometimes the reaction, there's no reaction. Sometimes you feel, a lot of things are going on and you don't have the capacity to react. Then we get into the social aspect. So they have kind of a humorous clip here. So it's important to be able to adapt yourself to different situations. And it's really important to be able to act socially, because that's our whole society and culture is about this. So it's important to be able to adapt. And people are always adapting to each other. And depending on who you're with and how many people you're with and what the social situation is, you have to adapt your behavior to it. And that's something that everybody does. And it's a lot about having a mutual connection to interact with each other, express our thoughts, and sharing our feelings with other people. And our need for social interaction can be difficult, can be very different from different individuals. But there are certain codes and rules about this, and if you never reach out to any of your friends, then they might think that you're not interested in meeting. Then they talk a little bit about how small talk can have a function. It's not just talking about silly things that aren't important. It is important to know, to have that stepping stone of small talk in order to get into a connection. It's kind of like a kind of grease to oil up the machinery of the relationship. So maybe if you find an interest that you share or something like that through the small talk, then you can go further and go deeper into the conversations afterwards. Then it comes about strategies to have the energy to be social. So one of them is taking the time to listen and taking the time to talk. Everybody has a responsibility to keep the conversation going, not just you and not the other person. So we need to kind of trust the other person is going to play their part in the conversation. Sometimes you might need to take a pause, so just you could go to the bathroom instead of staying there. It can be difficult, these things. So if you have a hard time, you might need to have like a safe person around to ask for help. It's important to be able to say no if you can't like socialize, because you might not have enough energy that day. So maybe you need to focus on gaining your energy back. Then there's a link to how to deal with certain meetings, like at school, at work, or in healthcare. Here are some strategies. So strategies to get better at the social aspect is being part of a club or an interest group, so that you have something to talk about with new people. And also there's a kind of regularity to these clubs that also is kind of routine bound, which is kind of nice. Another thing is to meet your friends, plan meetings with them. It's not easy, but if you plan it in advance, then things might get easier for you. It's way harder if it's spontaneous meetings. Just stay a little bit. You don't need to stay the whole party. You can leave early. It's better that you just came a little bit and showed yourself and then left, rather than not being there at all, if your goal is to socialize with people. Maybe talk about things that you are interested in. I don't think that you need this reminder, but maybe there are certain topics that you just don't have anything to contribute, and that's fine. Just talk about what you're interested in. And sometimes you might communicate better through text or through emojis. Learn to take initiative and to take contact with your friends, or to even take contact with people that you don't know, which is harder, I think, but it's a tip. Another thing is try to figure out how you can end a conversation. I have a hard time with this. I never know how to end a conversation. So you can practice with somebody that you know. Another thing is that you might script conversations before you have them. this is kind of masking, but sometimes we need to mask. This is important if you're going to be having a conversation with, for example, a certain, like talking to the police or talking to your boss or talking to somebody in authority, or just talking to your bank, just official people in official situations. If you feel stress talking, maybe you can focus on an activity rather than just having conversations. So for example, maybe you might go bowling and let that steer the conversation. Then we get into the unwritten rules, which is difficult for autistic people. There are rules that are laws, which, are part of our lives. We have laws. We also have social rules, but the social rules are often unwritten, and often they are different from place to place, which can confuse things a lot. So the problem with that is that we don't know, and so it's kind of like we're entering a new culture. And there are kind of these things that show your respect to each other. And these rules can also change depending on situation. For example, during the pandemic, people used to shake hands, and now they don't do so after the pandemic. They don't really give any tips here. Wait. The next part is about communication, and it might be difficult to interpret the nonverbal communication, and we might have a hard time with body language, and you might miss a lot of information, leading to misunderstandings, and it can also be your own body language that might lead to misunderstandings. So then they talk a little bit about the basic feelings, the 9 basic feelings. And the other feelings are kind of a mix of the basic feelings, So anger is one such of a basic feeling. Then it's kind of funny, they have a video of this guy who's like staring at you and smiling, and he's kind of like relaxing on some stairs. And they ask you, how do you interpret this? And me, as a woman, kind of interpret that as like he's being creepily flirty with me, okay? But other people might interpret that as like, oh, he's just being friendly. We don't know. Everybody's interprets things differently. But there are certain nonverbal things which are hand movements, your facial expressions, your eye contact and eye movements. And it's difficult because, eye contact is difficult. Neurotypical people apparently can read what other people are thinking by looking at their eyes, but I cannot, and so they give you tips about, eye contact, which I won't help you with. I don't want people to, there are several strategies. I don't know what is right, and it feels like I do it wrong even when I try. So I'm not going to give you tips on that. But then they talk about body language and your position. So, this has all been debunked before, but, maybe if you're like holding yourself like this, it might be that you're like nervous, or that you're, feeling kind of submissive to the other person, or that kind of thing. Well, if you stand up straight with like your open breast cage, then you might like show confidence in that way. I've gotten good at this as a doctor. If somebody is I have to look at the person when they come into the room, so I realize, oh, their leg hurts because they have a hard time walking, that kind of thing. So it's important skill to learn, but it won't come as automatically as for a neurotypical person. So depending on how the person moves, also how the person is dressed. Maybe if somebody is in sports gym clothes, they might be on the way to the gym, and maybe they're not going to party really if they're in those kind of clothes. But we can't really know about these things. Sometimes being quiet might be a good sign, and sometimes it might be a bad sign. And I don't know, for me there's no way to know. Sometimes you just feel it intuitively, but if you don't feel it intuitively, then what do you do? There's different things as well in the speech pattern, so in the tempo and the melody and the pauses, in what is emphasized. But all of this can also be different depending on the person, depending on where they're and how they grew up, about their personalities, all sorts of things. So that is it about mentalization. I don't think this one gave us a lot of tools, it just gave us a bunch of problems. So the next part will be about balance in energy, which I think is going to be important to avoid burnout. So that will be the last part of the series. So tell me what you guys think. Have a great day.